All right, we are live. We're going to give all of our viewers a couple minutes to hop on and join us. My name is Blair Flickinger. I'm the marketing director here at the Berkey, and I'm joined today by one of the owners of Pioneer Midwest, Matt Leach. Good to have you on with us, Matt.
Hi, everybody.
Before we jump into the hows and whys of classic skiing, do you want to just share with our viewers kind of your background, how you came to be at Pioneer? I know I was doing a little stalking in our database system before we hopped on the call today. You have quite the background with the American Birkebeiner, a lot of successes there. So tell us a little about yourself.
Oh, I love the Berkey. So I went to Osseo High School, which is just kind of a mile up the road from here. And I started skiing pretty late, so I got cut from my hockey program, and then I joined skiing as a almost 17-year-old, and I fell in love with the sport right away. And then I bought my first 2 sets of skis from Pioneer Midwest. Actually, the previous owners, Joe and John, they're these guys right here. They're right by the register. Got the 80s sweaters and big mustaches. And I went to the U of M and was on their club team, and kept getting, better at racing. We did the Berkey as a club, and that was kind of our target race for the year. So everyone was training for the Berkey and talked about the Berkey, and we did a lot of other marathons too. But and that was my first year. Well, that was my 3rd year on skis roughly, and I had some fast teammates, and they made me do intervals, and I didn't know what an interval was before that. And then right as I was finishing up my engineering degree from the University of Minnesota, I joined the CXC team, and then I was teammates with Garrett Cuzzy and Brian Gregg, and then eventually Jesse Diggins. And so I got to train with some really fast people, and got really good at skiing. And Brian Fish was my coach, and just had a lot of success. And I was when we sat down with our goals for the year, I told Brian when I first joined the team that my goal was to win the Berkey someday, and he smiled, and he also said, "Well, we're going to also try to get you to, qualify for World Cups and Olympics and that sort of stuff," and he got me there as well. So that's just my background with the Berkey. But I've always loved the race, and I won it in 2009, and then I've been 2nd place and 3rd place in 2018 or 2019 was the last time I was on the podium. So not too long ago, but I'm starting to get older and slower now. But this year will be my 20th Berkey, so I will be racing in a purple bib, which will be awesome.
Congratulations. So. Yeah. And I would imagine most of our watchers understand the purple bib, but our Birchleggers, anyone who's participating in their 20th and beyond Berkey, they get that special Berkey bib that's purple. And once you hit 40, you get an Uber legger, and then you have a black bib. So
is it 40 or is it 30? Is it 30 or is it 40?
30. You're right. It's 30.
Okay.
Me in line.
Safe. I was like 40. I mean, there are some that are hitting 40, but
there wouldn't be very many of them.
They're going to have to create a new category.
So, we will once if Ernie St. Germain is able to do the 50th next year, we might have to create a special category for him.
I know.
Awesome. And were you always a classic skier, Matt? Did you skate ski at all? What does that look like?
So I for the high school team in Osseo, I had to do both classic and skate. And being a hockey player, I was very good at skate skiing right off the bat. And I know Avo from Finsisu is a good friend, and he told me it would take me over a decade to learn how to classic ski well. And I didn't believe him, but he was right. He was correct. It took me a long time to learn how to classic ski. And I was I got to do the Berkey Classic during the one of the COVID years. Was that 2 years ago? And that was awesome. I loved that race. I wish we separated every year so I could do the back-to-back Berkey Skate and Berkey Classic. But I keep choosing to do the skate Berkey. Just it's against the international field and FIS points and
Mhm.
some bigger prize money. So I keep trying to get my way onto the podium in that race. But I'm starting to think about maybe switching to the classic in future years.
Mhm.
So
Well, you could maybe do a not quite back to back, but Wednesday classic open track and Saturday
yeah,
state. Give yourself
exactly.
just enough time to get really nice and sore for that Saturday race.
Yeah, exactly.
But awesome. Well, let's jump into things. I know you have some great information to share with our viewers today. And just a reminder, as Matt's talking, I think he's got a little presentation planned for us, and we'll also be taking some questions. So if you have questions, pop those in the comments, and we'll make sure Matt gets to as many as he can. And I know one of his colleagues is going to hop on with us as well to talk a little more about wax selection and waxing. And this is all really interesting to me. I grew up skate skiing, Matt, but I bought my first pair of classic skis last year. And hearing that it can take 10 years to learn, I totally believe it. I feel like a fish out of water. I don't understand the fit, how much wax to put on, what kind of. So I'm excited to hear what you guys have to say today, and I'm sure a lot of folks are out there as well.
Awesome. Yeah, no, I will be covering classic skis and classic fitting, and then Jeremy, who's actually stone grinding skis right now, he is going to jump on the call in maybe 15 minutes or so, or 20 minutes, and then talk about kick wax. So, but I'm going to grab one of my staff members to hold the camera.
Awesome.
Volunteers, anyone? I need a yeah, and then we'll go over it. So
we're getting like the whole back of house tour of Pioneer Midwest today. I like it.
Yeah, exactly. No, we're pretty open with kind of what we're doing here. So we give the full backstage tour all the time. So I'm going to talk. This is our test lab, and so we've built both of these flex testers with some of our employees, and then some of my friends who are also engineers and skiers, which was great. So on the U of M club team, I had a lot of teammates that were also electrical engineers, which is what I studied, and so we put together some test devices to help us test skate and classic, but we're just going to talk classic today. I'm going to take just a few minutes to describe how skis are made, and then it gives kind of a background as why there's a lot of differences. So this is basically skis are kind of handmade wooden objects. So this is how the cores of skis are made. Actually, this is Salomon, so they have the sidewall and then kind of a Kevlar aramid type material or paper dipped in resin with another piece of wood, and that's kind of what the cores are made out of. And then they cut it into kind of 2-inch by 2-inch strips, basically. And it's light and durable, and it's basically a handmade wooden object that kind of carries your weight across snow. And so and they refine the cambers with like a wood jig and a bandsaw. So here's a bunch of cores, and then they'll cut them into shape. And this is actually at Fisher, and I took that photo from a New York Times article. It's kind of a fun article. It's called "From Trees to Skis," and it's actually behind a paywall now, but you can still find that article, and it's kind of a cool article to read. But yeah, this is what the cores look like when they start, and then they get refined with a wood jig and a bandsaw. And this is a pre-press area. So they'll build all the skis here, or the parts of the skis. If I grab a photo of another pre-press, here's a kind of an assembly area. So they'll clamp the bases down, and then they'll put that hand cut core. Here's a bunch of the cores there, and then they'll put stringer and the graphic, and they'll set the top of the mold on all the materials and make a cold ski sandwich. So here is a cold ski sandwich, and they'll take that and put it into a ski press and heat and press, and the glue and resin in there is kind of flowing through the core. And then after 15 minutes out, kind of a hot ooey gooey ski will pop out. And then they make 2 at a time, but they're not pairs. And then they'll do the trim work and the grind work later in the process. So there's a whole lot of variation on skis, and that's why we go and travel to pick all of our skis, and we and then we also, you know, pick for conditions. So we have a pretty basic fit method. We look at contact pressure. So this machine here is a bunch of load cells, and I can see kind of and we'll show a couple classic skis here, but as I push on the skis, we get to see pressure along the length of the ski. And then step 2 is we'll have you stand on the skis. We've got a ski press here. Again, we've built this too, and so we can put skier body weight onto the skis. So right now I've got this set at 150 pounds, and that's acting as kind of a ball of the foot. And then if you were here, we can also have you stand on a fit bench, and that's more of a traditional way to fit classic and skate skis. We kind of like the ski press because it's very controlled, right? So as long as I know your weight, then I don't have the customer kind of bouncing around on the skis. And then so number 1 is quality. Number 2 is, does the ski fit? And then the third thing we look at is what is the conditional considerations for the ski? You know, is it a cold ski, a universal, or kind of a warmer or a wet ski? So that's our three things that we look at. The classic skis in general, if we talk classic or skate skis in general, like in their purest sense, kind of a classic ski needs a very stiff primary camber to carry kick wax, so it's fast double pulling and downhill, and then it needs a very soft secondary camber so the ski kicks and gets traction so you can go uphill when you're striding. Skate ski is kind of the opposite of that. So skate skis need a very soft primary camber, so when you set the ski down, it accelerates away from you, especially it's very important when you're climbing. And then it needs a very stiff but supple secondary camber so you get stability and that you can push and edge off the ski. So those are kind of polar opposites from each other, and that's kind of a, you know, can be a difficult ask for a piece of wood that was bent into shape to carry your weight across snow in a certain manner. So but we'll look at I grabbed 2. I'm gonna just pick on Salomon today here. I've got a pair of Zero skis, and I don't mind that they're zeros. I'm gonna look at what we're looking for with cambers. So this first ski that we're gonna push on to push at skier body weight, and both these skis should fit maybe about 150 pound skier. We kind of look at half body weight of the ski. So this is I've got, you know, 75 pounds of total load put on the ski. So this would be somebody double pulling or going down a hill, and then you can see there's no contact pressure in the kick zone. And then once I add pressure to full body weight, this would be simulating the kick. Well, at 150 pounds, I've got the back half of the pockets closed, but then I've got a huge gap between, you know, cell 27 and cell, you know, 35. Well, if we look at where that is, that's here to here, which is really not contacting the snow. So this ski has a lot of residual camber, which is great for clister skiing, but we generally, as a kind of an all-purpose, all-use ski, we'd want to see that close. And you'd think like, oh, maybe the ski would be a better universal ski for somebody that weighs more. But if we push on the ski harder, you'll just see it never really closes here. And I'm not 240 pounds, and this is still open. So cambers don't really change their characteristics by adding more or less weight. So the absolute, you know, flex of the ski is just a small piece of the puzzle. If you just know the flex number, that'd be like trying to look at a painting through a straw and determining what it is. It'd just be very, very difficult. So that classic ski will just have a hard time kicking unless you've got a lot of clister under the ball of the foot. Whereas this is a pair of Zero skis here, and again we'll look at half body weight. What we can see, the pocket is again free and clear. The nice thing with this ski is I've got less pressure in the tip and tail, so it's going to glide a little faster. And then also when I kick the ski, you can see that we're getting contact starting right in the front of the pocket here, and then the whole thing fills in. So at 150 pounds, this is all down. There's not really any gaps in the pocket. So this is helpful if we're looking for kind of a universal ski. Clister skis, warmer skis, you can have a more open pocket to carry that clister. But if you need like a ski to do clister and hard wax, you need the pocket to close all the way, basically. And so there's kind of a difference there in camber characteristic. So we use contact pressure to determine if the ski is going to be good or not. Generally, we want to see most of the pocket engage. It'd be like if the whole pocket closes to kick and you're like this and you can grab that much snow at a time is great, versus if the pocket is inelastic, you can punch it down. It's like trying to kick off of just your elbow. So you'll have kick, but you'll never have really secure kick. And then step 2 is to, we basically push on the skis on our ski press, or have the customer stand on a fit bench. So we'll go to half body weight, for 150 pounds, and so that's 75 pounds, and we load at ball of the foot, because when you're double pulling, you're coming forward onto the ball of the foot. And what we use metric feeler gauges. We can use a business card, but we like controlling our variables, and that's why we choose to use the metric feeler gauges, and we'll mark the pocket basically for hard wax and clister. So like I'm just kind of putting pocket marks on this ski, and we'll go. So we generally use kind of two lines. We kind of the longest marks would be considered hard wax. So this ski is measuring out at right at 60 centimeters for the hard wax mark, and then the clister zone is measuring out at 47. So it would be and generally we want on a classic ski, we kind of want 60 centimeters for hard wax, 60 to 70. Obviously, the shorter the ski, that scales a little bit. But we need that much surface area to kind of get kick off of. The clister zone on the ski is only 47. That's a little short. I kind of want maybe 50 centimeters for clister at kind of a minimum. It can be okay if it's well-formed tracks, but if you have a longer pocket, you just have more surface area to kick off of. And so this ski kind of pocket length looks a little bit more hard wax, but if we look at pressure and kind of the camber shape, it's more of a clister ski. So it's kind of an oxymoron, which is why we didn't pick the ski this summer. It just arrived here, and it'll go back to where it came from. But the next thing I want to talk about, besides, we looked at kind of quality of flex. We looked at, does the ski fit? This ski would fit a 150-pound person. It's just not really going to be good for much. We want a broad range kind of solution. And so the next step in our process is to determine if it's a cold ski or if it's a universal or a warm ski. So this ski here, we can see that it's a fairly warm pocket and camber shape, because what you'll notice is we've got a lot of splay in the tip and the tail. So you can see kind of this comes off the snow a lot, and this is a pretty short contact. If this was a very cold ski, this would be completely down. We'd have very long contact. So we try to quantify the amount of surface area on the ski, basically. So warmer skis, if you push them, they open a lot in the tip, and this is a fairly warm camber. Cold skis, when they put in the press, they keep the tips down so you have longer contact, and that's great for cold snow. And when I say cold snow, I'm kind of talking 20 degrees and colder. And if you're in warmer snow, it's generally 20 degrees and warmer. And universal is anywhere from 10 to 30 degrees is pretty universal. But if you have a warm day and you use a ski with long contact, that ski is not going to glide very well, because you have so much base on the snow. The ski will just literally and figuratively suck, basically. So our rule of thumb is we try to find warmer skis because they'll handle warm snow, and they will go colder as well. So if you have kind of one classic ski, to do everything, we need the pocket to kick really well so you can run hard wax or clister. We need a long enough pocket so you can have good glide, and also carry your kick wax without ripping it all off. So if the pocket's a little too shallow, you'll put on kick wax or clister, but it'll just get ripped off as you're skiing around. And then we want to find something with a little bit of tip and tail splay, so it can handle warmer conditions, but it also will go colder as well. And that's kind of our classic process. And it it sounds fairly simple. We have a lot of data behind how we do that. We tested, hundreds of thousands of skis, and then we travel all summer to go find classic skis. So honestly, like finding really good classic skis is a can be a very challenging task. And the fitting on classic skis is so nuanced, and the weight ranges are fairly tight. Like if you gain or lose 10 pounds, that can make your ski not fit quite as well. Where skate skis have a really pretty broad range fit window, because it's just they just have to glide. They need stability and they got to glide. And so they've got a much larger window of opportunity on fitting, where classic skis are pretty tricky, especially waxable. Skins, you've got a little bit more, you can have a little bit more broad range because you can move the binding position a little bit. And there's all these fancy bindings now where you move a dial and you change your load position on the ski, which changes the kick and glide equation. And we've actually had customers putting this on their classic waxable skis a lot lately too. Brian Gregg and I have used the Move binding on our race skis. It just really helps. Like if we're doing the Sealy Hills Classic and we over or under wax a little bit, you can make a change with the binding position on the fly and get more kick or more glide. So it's just it's a fairly cheap insurance policy, basically.
Yeah, that's great. I didn't realize that was how those bindings worked. Really good.
Yeah.
So it's funny because you said a lot of these tests are very simple, and I'm sitting here as someone who's not a classic skier thinking, okay, I obviously just need to come into your shop and have you guys look at what fits you best. Do you guys take appointments? How does that work? Can people just walk in to Pioneer Midwest and have you look at this?
We take walk-ins and we also take appointments. Corey, who's holding the phone right now, he does a ski fitting. Ian, Adam, myself, Jeremy, Max. We have like a number of ski fitters on staff, and so we take walk-in traffic as it comes in. We also can take appointments. So like my email is just matt@pioneermidwest.com. A lot of times people will set up a appointment with me to look at all their old skis, because then we'll get a bill of health on your skis, kind of figure out what's good, what fits, and what is it good for, and then we can kind of get a whole picture of everything you have, and then see if you want to fill any holes or if you want a new ski or not. So we do that. We do that very frequently. And again, we can take walk-ins or we can go by appointment. We also have a lot of customers that maybe live out of the area, and they'll do this virtually with us. So we'll do a Zoom call with them. We'll have all their skis and we'll test them while they're on the Zoom call with us, and we can go through the flex of all their skis as well. And as long as we know the weight, we can simulate their weight. So we were doing this before COVID was a thing. So it really was nice once COVID happened. People couldn't maybe physically come into the store. Like we just would get skis shipped to us, and we were kind of doing the virtual fitting, before it was a thing. That said, it is kind of fun to stop in the store and touch and feel all this stuff and really kind of immerse yourself into what's going on. So it's we generally try to educate our customers on how the skis are made and why they're working the way that they are, and then that helps them understand how their equipment's working, and they can generally get better use out of it.
Yeah, that's really helpful. And I think also from as a customer, seeing those videos and seeing how often these skis aren't just being mass produced by machines. People are handling these skis new, it's sometimes you walk into a shop and you're like, whoo, maybe the price tag scares you a little bit, but once you realize the craftsmanship that goes into making this equipment,
they're all handmade objects, handmade winter foam objects. I got a really short video I can kind of show you. This is Maya Dahlquist. She was making her own ski at Solomon this summer with, she was there with her boyfriend, Kevin Boulder, who's a Wisconsin skier. So as we watch this short video here, there's Kevin and that's Maya, and they were in France this summer, and they have a kind of a prototype race press here, so they'll play with skis, but you can see they just got buckets of glue here. Like that's the graphic that she's dumping glue onto, and all the people in the background are Solomon grind techs or the ski engineers. They were actually at our shop about 2 weeks ago, most of this team, which is which was awesome. But you can just see like how much variation there is. That's the base that we're getting blue on, and you'll see in a second when they place the core into the bottom of the mold here. So they got the base down. They're putting some carbon fiber stringer, and you can see the ski press in the background. And then she'll hand set the cores into place. So that's the core, and these are all variable. There's a giant mallet there because you got to beat the skis out of the press. But this one's got stringer on. She'll set some stringer on top of that, and then flip the graphic on, and they'll put the top of the mold on, and then take that whole cold sandwich and stick it into a ski press. So I kind of equate it to like a Subway sandwich artist. Like you can make one cold sandwich look pretty close to another cold sandwich, but once you take that sandwich and put it in a panini press and bend and heat it into shape, then all bets are off. You have no control where the cheese and everything's kind of flowing. So
yeah, it makes it all makes me respect you guys that much more, just knowing the process you go through to ensure you have good quality products for people walking in, and that it's going to have that consistency for them. So really interesting. I appreciate you sharing that video. And also, just a quick reminder for the folks who are watching, if they want to swing into your store, where are you guys located?
We're located in Osseo, Minnesota. So from downtown Minneapolis, we're about 20 minutes northwest. We're very close to Elm Creek Park Reserve, which has got 2.5K of artificial snow skiing, plus like 15K or 20K of other additional trails. Theodore Wirth Park in Minneapolis is probably about 15 minutes from us. So we're fairly close to a lot of skiing, which is really, really helpful to, our staff likes to go and test skis as much as we can and ski on different stuff.
Yeah, perks of the job, right?
Yeah, exactly. So, and we're getting a dumping of snow right now, so there's probably 3 or 4 inches on the ground right now, and so we're a little quieter in the store today. But once the roads clear off and every place gets groomed up, we're expecting a really busy second half of the weekend. And the weekend, I think, will be maybe off the hook here. So it'll be exciting. But again, we have a well-trained staff, and we just want to help you enjoy the sport of skiing. So if you don't have skis and you want to get fit, you can come in. We can fit on entry level all the way up to the most high-end race level skis and anything in between. And then if you have skis, we can look at what you have, give it a bill of health, again, check to see if it's a good ski, what weight it fits, and what it's good for. And then once you have kind of a bill of health on your skis, then you have can make a lot better decisions on what you might want to purchase in the future.
So you're saying the used skis I bought off my coworker might not be the perfect fit for what I need them to be.
No, they could be. It's just like it's just like pulling a lottery ticket out of the gas station.
Awesome, Matt. Well, if anybody, again, if you have any questions, please pop those in the comments. And who are we chatting with next about wax, or if you have any other parting words on the equipment side of things?
We're gonna go pull Jeremy off of the stone grinder, and he is going to talk kick wax, which is a whole another set of that's some voodoo right there. But we'll have him put his earbuds in and get oh, there he is. Do you want to join the call now?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. There's Ian and Adam, and it's lunchtime at the ski shop here. Oh, Jeremy's trying to have lunch, but we'll skip that for now.
Sorry, Jeremy.
No, it's all right. But he'll talk through classic cake wax and some clisters, and some maybe mention how to treat some skin. How to treat skin skis, because that's becoming very, very popular. Like here's a set right here. But the one other thing I will mention about skins is they can wear out after 3-4 seasons. So the more you ski them on artificial snow, the more that'll kind of tear away the skins, and they look like they're quite full and kicky. But if you feel them versus a new pair, there's a lot less texture. Traction there. So skins do wear out, even though they don't look like they're wearing out. Also, skis wear out quicker than they used to, so they're making them so lightweight. But like the Salomon S Labs here, they're really, really thin. Same with all the top end models now, the Red Lines and the Speed Maxes, and and they're incredibly lightweight, but there's just less core material than there used to be. And so they seem to wear out just a little bit sooner. Older skis would last maybe a decade, but that's no longer the case. We're talking 3, 4, 5, 6 seasons of use. They're losing their camber. And I won't mention names, but I've talked to all the different ski engineers in the world, and I have brought this up, and they look at me and I'm complaining, and they say, "You're welcome."
Yeah, I mean, you can't have it all, right? We want light, we want fast, or at least a lot of the racers do. So when you cater to that, you maybe lose the longevity.
A little bit. So that's why most of the customers we work with, they'll bring in their race skis, or their training ski once a year for just a bill of health. Like, bring in the whole bag, we'll check everything, and we can actually see how the cambers change over time. Is pretty interesting. But it's a good thing to do once a year, just to bring the skis in, check the flex, also check the bases. Stone grinding is really important now, especially that we've taken floral waxes away. So your base is really intimately working with the snow. And if it's scabbed or sealed a little bit, it's very slow with the non-floral waxes. You need healthy, clean base material, is really important. So that's why Jeremy's working so hard on grinding skis back there to get the bases open and clean and fast. So,
just in time for all that fresh snow that's coming down. Well, it looks like, Jeremy, we've got your video up here.
Are you good?
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay, so we'll have Corey grab Jeremy's phone here then. Or you can probably see. You can probably just use my phone, right?
Whatever's easiest for you guys.
I'll just use mine.
Should I jump off the call in?
Yeah, sounds good. Well, thank you, Matt. We'll swap over to Jeremy here. Hey, Jeremy.
Hey, guys. I will not be keeping Corey busy. I'm just gonna have our wax in the background here, just have you propped up in my phone. Sounds like you guys are having me talk about classic wax.
Yeah, we'd love to hear just what's out there, what's available for folks, whether you're a recreational skier or racer, what to be looking for.
Yeah, cool. Well, I kind of go even, I don't know, kind of in depth a little bit here, showing about stuff that you can do at the basic recreational level, and then going on up through the honestly up to up standard. So I've waxed for World Cup when he was last there. I was waxing for him. Just this last season, I helped out the U.S. ski team at the Tour de Ski. So I was able to go there for a week or two, and then this upcoming season I'll be at a few different races, World Junior Championships, and then I'll be at World Cup finals in Lahti. So a lot of experience, a lot at the high end, but also I've been junior coaching for a number of years, and waxing my own skis, waxing my wife's skis, and everything in between. So when we look at kick waxing, honestly, probably the most important piece is base prep, getting the skis actually ready to have wax put on it. I just had yesterday a customer come in that says, "Oh, I've just been putting wax on top of my old wax, and it's just working anymore." It's like, well, have you ever cleaned off what you had underneath? Like, oh no, I didn't know you're supposed to do that. And it's like, okay, it's just just general education on that. It's like, okay, starting with a clean slate. So I probably don't have to go too in depth in this, but wax remover, putty knife, shop towels, and scrubbies, like green scrub pad. That can help out a lot when you're working with a clister. Just getting the ski base to a point where it is basically no kick wax on there at all. That's a number one piece to kick waxing, clister, really anything. The next piece though is to make sure that you actually have the bases properly sanded. I don't have a good example here on me right now, but it wouldn't show up very well on the camera, but it has something for that kick wax to adhere to. So I like to use 100 grit sandpaper and just waxing in those zones that you're using. So if you're on a hard wax day, you wax between the 0.2 and the 0.2. If you're on a clister day, you would wax between 0.6 and 0.6. And I think that Matt hopefully talked to you guys about the way that we mark zones and the way that we have zones, but that's by thicknesses. So the thicker the wax you're using, the shorter the pocket. So don't worry about if you are sanding to the 0.2, but you're using clister and you have whatever, an inch or two of sanded zone that's kind of bare. It's not going to affect your glide really at all. So what you want to be doing there is just making sure that you have that zone properly sanded, dry, in order for wax to adhere to. So just using a simple back and forth pattern on the bases should be enough to get it properly sanded. So after that, and this is where we'll finally start to talk about kick wax, we look at binders. And throughout this entire conversation, really going to be talking about when we're using wax. It's not necessarily temperature specific, it is more condition specific. So are you on new snow, fresh snow, like we have kind of fallen out right now? Is it old snow? Is it transformed snow? Is it man-made snow? Is it ice? Is it whatever? That is the most important piece to choosing a wax. Secondary is the temperature. So there's certain waxes that work well in certain conditions, and then others that just won't. Even if it's in the right temperature range, it may or may not work. So when we start looking at binders, there's a few different options that we can go with. So I will be picking out some of my favorite products here. And I am missing this one. So, what I have, sorry, I'm just gonna be going through here if that's all right with you guys. This and these two here. So, so binder products. So if we're looking at just everyday use, something that's really simple to go on, that's kind of easy to use for just average conditions. Things that I like to use or recommend would be Toco Green Binder. It's a really easy binder to use. I rarely will use this in a race though. And the reason being is that it's not really a binder for very specific conditions. So it's just a good all-around binder, but it's not necessarily fast or durable. It just kind of does a little bit of both. So when I'm looking at binders for racing, I will actually choose for hard waxing conditions, binders that are either fast. So if I know it's not very abrasive conditions, Bouty Base AT or Rex Base Wax, these are both faster binders. So when you're looking at these specifically and touching them, they're not very sticky. It feels like it's a blue or a green hard wax. And you put these on, you iron them in, they go on very, very thinly. They're not very durable, but they're really fast. And it'll just give you a little bit of extra bite for your wax of the day to apply to. Then when we are looking at days that are slightly more abrasive, I would be looking at one of these three waxes here. So Start Base Extra or Bouty Super Base or Base Super. These are both hard wax. And then we also have Rex Liquid Base Clister. All three of these options are going to be here. If it's man-made snow, I will generally lean towards these different waxes here. So when I go into a race setting, I'm looking at either applying a fast binder or a durable binder. And very rarely am I kind of falling in that middle ground there where middle ground is that Toco Green or either of the two, the Swix binders. The Swix binder is the VG30. This one can be a fast binder as well, but generally I like the Rex and the Bouty ones better.
Jeremy, can I stop you for 1 second?
Yeah.
Because I don't know if you heard earlier, but I am new to classic skiing. I've been a skate skier all my life. So the binder is going on before the actual kick wax. That's just like to prep that base. Okay.
And so, yeah, so it's as its name, it's binding your grip wax to the base. So if you put on your wax of the day, and we'll talk about that in a second, just straight onto the ski base, it generally is just going to wear off almost right away. Doesn't matter if it's abrasive conditions or if it's like new snow, it will come off fairly quickly. And that's an issue I see when I get customers coming in and say, hey, my skis didn't kick. I'm like, okay, can I take a look at your skis? They bring them in, and they said, I went out for 5 kilometers and I look at the bottom of their bases and there's nothing on there. And usually the case is because they didn't sand the bases and they didn't apply a binder. So these binders, when you're applying it, you apply it to that sanded zone, and you're also getting a kick wax iron. So you're actually going to apply heat to these waxes and really smooth it out and try to get it really thin. And so kick wax iron, they don't make a specific kick wax iron, but we call it a kick wax iron because it's separate than your glide iron. You don't want to use a kick iron and a glide iron together. That wouldn't be a great thing to be putting kick wax into your glide zone. So generally, any type of a cheap iron can do. Old iron, really crappy something. So if you want one here from the shop, I'd probably sell you. I think this is our cheapest iron. We have one for $55. But really kind of anything just to heat up the wax, and then that will help to apply and keep that wax in place. And anything you put on top of that wax is going to really bind well to that binder. That's why it's called that. But when you're picking out those waxes, like those specific waxes I was talking about, it's really by conditions. So overall use, general use, these 3 are really good products. But in racing terms, these 2 are going to be good for faster conditions. When there's new snow involved, not really a lot of, you have to worry about durability. And then these 3 are going to be used for when there is icier conditions, icier terrain, when we're still talking about hard wax. Now if we're on to Klister, which again is just another layer to this, we'd be using Klister binders where, yes, you could use this one, the liquid-based Klister from Rex, but other companies will have Klister binders. Trying to see what else we have in here. Here. So, liquid or just regular binders. So Klister, very, very abrasive conditions. So whenever it is really icy or when it's really warm, that's when Klister is going to be used. So a lot of times when it gets really warm, hard waxes just won't have enough grip to it in order to grip to that wet snow. And that's where the Klisters come in. It's really kind of sticky. Applying them can be tricky if you're doing it for your first time. But once you get used to it and once you kind of get that feeling down, it does get a lot better. So it does take time to learn how to apply that. But similar to kick waxing, Klister waxing, you need to prep that zone, make sure it's clean, sand it, put down a binder, heat that binder in. Otherwise, when you put your regular Klister on, this is going to drag all the way down the back of your ski. You won't necessarily see it on hard wax or kick wax. It'll just disappear. It'll be like, okay, it's not on my ski anymore. I don't see it. Klister, if you don't have a proper binder, it will literally just transfer from your kick zone to the back of your tails, and you'll just have stickiness all across your entire ski.
Sounds
so
fun.
Making sure you have a proper binder for kick or for Klister is, oh yeah, it's great. But if you have that proper binder on, it's not going to move anywhere. So, but binder is honestly probably one of the more important pieces, is just making sure you have the binder and that ski preparation. Once you get all that set, then it is just applying the wax of the day. So it's figuring out what kind of waxes work. And like I mentioned before, it's going to be on conditions. So if we have new snow, there's certain types of waxes that work with new snow. If we have man-made snow, there's going to be certain types of waxes, or transformed snow, there'll be certain types of waxes that work with that. And then there's a lot of waxes that work in that middle zone where you're between new snow and between old snow, kind of that just regular cold winter snow. There's a lot of waxes that work in there, and that's where you can get more into that temperature specific stuff. But if we're looking right now just at those conditions on the ends of the spectrum, that's kind of the easiest to narrow down because they're really kind of specific and specific type waxes. So stuff that I like to use, sorry, just grabbing a couple different ones in here. Okay, so stuff that I like to use. So we have first from Rex. They have two products that are specific to new snow. So N21G and 30GB. Both of these are for new snow, but they're for two different types of new snow. So just going further into specifics here. So N21G is for like fresh fallen snow that is really dry and it's kind of like windblown snow. So when you get like colder conditions where that wind is blowing into snow into the tracks, this wax is going to work really well. But if we get fresh fallen snow that's a little bit warmer, really humid, I haven't been outside yet, but probably like what it is right now, this 30GB will be working better. And what we are trying to prevent when it gets into these types of conditions is new snow crystals. They're really, really like, they look like snowflakes when you cut it out into a piece of paper. That will actually lodge into your kick wax and it will stay there. And the next piece will lodge in and the next piece will lodge in. And over time, it'll just keep on clumping up on the bottom of your ski. And then it will turn into water and then it will freeze. And so what we call that is icing. And so what that feels like when you're skiing is when you go out and ski and then your ski just suddenly just starts to kick or grab on its own. And you look at the bottom of your ski base and you just have a clump of ice, a clump of snow on the bottom of your ski. That's called icing. We're trying to avoid that. And these waxes have certain raw materials in it that will help to prevent that icing from happening while still allowing you to get kick. So other companies, they will have waxes that include tar. So you got the Terva line from Start and the GT line from Bauti. That T stands for tar, so it's tar grip wax. So when you smell it, this is the wax that really smells really good. It smells like pine tar. It's just an awesome smell. So those ones, they have an entire line from Bauti and from Start, an entire line of them going from the cold conditions all the way up to the warmer conditions, where it's a bump system where you can just look at that temperature and be like, okay, it falls in here, it's new snow, this wax should probably work. And so that's where you can get into those temperature specific stuff on the new snow. But really when you're looking for it, and you open up the tin, you smell it, you smell that tar, it probably will work on newer snow conditions. Then we go into older snow conditions, and this is older snow when we're looking at man-made or kick waxes still. So not yet going over into clisters. Again, from Rex, they have a specific one, N41. This is for old snow. Great on man-made snow. We had a lot of success here in the Twin Cities, Elm Creek, Theodore Wirth, Highland. Lots of high school teams absolutely love that wax. Start has another line of waxes. There's a third one here is a green. It's the Oslo line. The common theme with all of these waxes is that they're really sticky. So when I put my finger in here and I touch this, it's going to be really kind of a sticky wax compared to those tar line waxes. They're actually not as sticky as these man-made snow waxes. And what these waxes actually are, they're actually a mixture of hard wax and clister. So there is some clister inside these waxes, that will help to adhere to that really, really abrasive snow, and it helps to increase the durability. And so that's what you're getting out of these waxes when they add in Klister, just a small amount of it. It may only be 10, 15, 20% in some of these tin. But what that does is it adds durability to the kick wax. So when it gets into those really cold conditions, or not cold conditions, you can put on your wax of the day and it will work out fine for probably 2 or 3K, but it will wear off.
Mm-hmm.
And so making sure you have waxes that are going to be durable is what's going to help. And even if you have a good binder on there, you still need to have a wax that has some durability on top of that. So that's where those two there. And then Guru has two that I really like, Extreme High Gear and Super High Gear. They're again going to be man-made snow, really kind of sticky waxes. So good for old man-made snow or even transformed snow. So it may not even necessarily need to be man-made snow. It's, you know, on the Berkey Trail, it hasn't snowed in a month, and it's gone through a couple freeze-thaw cycles. Those waxes are going to work out wonderfully and probably be better than Klister options. So those are kind of the specific type waxes. And then we just look at the regular waxes for regular conditions. And that's where, I'll pick up my phone here. I'm not going to show off all these, but where we get into like Rhody. Rhody has a massive line of waxes here that they all are really some of the best waxes out here, but Green Special, Green, Blue Multigrade, Blue 2, Blue 1, Super Extra, Blue Super. These are all for general type snow conditions, and they're very, very minor changes in those temperature ranges. You don't need all of these to have a functioning kick box, but that really like shows how specific you can get in racing.
Yeah. And I think
Swix has similar thing, a little bit easier to understand and deal with.
Yeah. And that's a good lead in, Jeremy. So we had a couple of questions come in. And I think it really relates to that selection process. There's a lot to choose from. You know, if you're trying to narrow it in, especially, you know, someone said, you know, they're traveling from far away. They're going to, you know, for race day. They don't necessarily have time to test their skis before race day. Any advice on maybe carrying along spare wax during the race, or is that necessary? How would you navigate that situation?
I mean, it really depends on the race. I mean, I think that the Berkey is probably the big one that people are really worried about. But I mean, you might be traveling out to Boulder Mountain Tour or going over to Europe for some of these longer races, and it's in the longer event, and that I definitely recommend having a backup wax or two in your fanny pack, in your race suit, just somewhere, just in case. And the reason being is that, okay, if you're out there for the Berkey, and I mean, I think I skied it last year. I was like 3 hours or something like that. I mean, there's people that are out there for 4, 5, 6 hours, and if you're starting at 8 a.m. and you're out there for 6 hours, that brings it to 2 o'clock. You're going through a massive range of temperature on a normal day. I mean, occasionally you might get lucky and have it where it's consistently 20 degrees and cloudy the entire day. But usually that's not the case. Usually there's a warm up somewhere. And so if you're out there for a while, bringing just a bump up in wax is a really nice thing. And so this is kind of a system that I've mentioned it once before, is a bump system. It's what the World Cup teams actually use quite a bit, and it's what I try to use when I get the chance. With sorry, got some notifications coming in. I need to. How do I go to? There we go. Do not disturb. There. I should stop everything. Cool. Sorry about that.
No worries.
So like I was mentioning, bump system. So on the World Cup, when things are happening in testing, they go out and test kick wax an hour before the race. And even in that hour, conditions can change. And generally what teams use, and there's a lot of waxes that I don't even have available here. But what they will use is they'll gravitate towards certain lines that have very similar waxes. So one thing I'll show you guys here, that's one of the more popular waxes on the World Cup. So these 3 waxes here. So VO, VPS, VXPS from Rody. All are going to be violet racing wax from Rody. And what happens is if the coaches go out and say that, okay, VPS, which is the one in the middle, was the winning product of the day, then the wax tech will actually go out with the athlete, test their skis with the athlete, and the athlete says, I want a little bit more kick. And instead of adding on another layer of that VPS, the wax tech will have in their fanny pack a thing of VXPS, which is the bump. When without testing, they know that wax will give them a little bit more kick and be a good product because they're very, very similar waxes. And it's bump that way. You look at the Swix line; they're really good at this. So you got their new product line here, VP 30, 40, 45, 50, 55, 60. They're all very similar waxes, and as you go up in that line, you can just say, okay, I need a little bit more wax. Just go to that next number higher, and it will probably work. So if you're out for racing and you applied, let's just say VP 40, and that's your race wax, I'd probably just bring a VP 45 with you just in case you need extra wax later on in the race. Just that next one warmer is really a kind of a good bet to have. So all these companies will have a line something similar to that. And that's a good way to prepare for those longer races, is to not only maybe bring out the race wax that you're on in case it just started to wear off, but if you know that it's warming up a little bit, just go up to the next warmer wax, and you don't need to test it at all, because as long as in that same line, you're probably safe. The issue happens is when you're on one of these more specific waxes, and this is something they'll show you here from Rex, 30 GB, it's great wax. But if it starts to warm up and this doesn't work, well, there's not a warmer one of this. Like, you can't go up to the next level because there is no next level. And so you would have to go out and figure that out and test and do that. So that's where it sometimes is nice to have the ability to stay in a line of waxes and be like, okay, I know what that bump option is without even having to test. And so a lot of these companies and a lot of these World Cup teams are trying to develop and have lines of waxes that are going to be in that bumping system. So same thing on Klisters. Klisters is actually kind of interesting. That's a completely different subject because they're really easy to mix. And so what we get are specialty waxes, like this one here. So this comes in from Bouty in a weird container. But what it says on here is Klister Mix, 50-50 Violet Universal. So it's a 50-50 mix of their Violet and their Universal. And that's been shown to be a really good wax, mixing those two at a 50-50 ratio. But you could do it at a 75-25 or 25-75 or 60-40 or 40-60. It's really easy to do that with Klister because it just comes out of tubes and then mix it all up together and you put it back in the tube. So that's possible to do. And so because of that, you can make your own bumping line of waxes in the Klister pretty easily. It's more difficult in kick waxing. Still possible to make your own waxes, mix them together, pour them out, but you're more likely to burn it because you have to actually melt the waxes in order for that to happen, whereas Klister, they're already basically goop anyways, so it doesn't take a lot of heat to melt it, so you're not really going to burn it. So
we've got a couple more questions,
so that
Jeremy.
covers most of that normal stuff.
There are. Sorry, I'm trying to jump in. So one person has a question about skins. Do you guys, because most skis are coming, if they buy them with the skins already on, do you guys have a skin like replacement? Can you replace the skins, or do they have to get new skins, or how do they tell if they're too worn to work effectively?
Unfortunately, I just swapped out a pair of skins last night. That would have been a great example. But skins, they do have a lifespan to them. I mean, it really depends on where you're skiing. If you're on mostly man-made snow, it's going to wear down those skins a lot sooner than if you're on mostly natural snow. So what we've seen is anywhere between 1,500 and maybe 2,000 kilometers is the kind of average lifespan of a skin. But really what you notice on it is from visual standpoint, they're starting to wear down. You can visually see that they're not the same color. They don't look the same as what they were brand new. And from a functionality standpoint, you're not getting very much kick anymore. So when you're starting to get less kick, that's because that skin's wearing out. You're getting the hair off. Yeah, we do have replacement skins for pretty much all companies. So that's something we do in here. It's anywhere between $40 and $60 for a skin replacement. And we'll do that replacement here. As long as we're not busy, we can usually do it on the spot. But if we're busy or if I'm not around or available, then it might have to get checked in for a day or two. Something that most people have the ability to do, but it's best to get it done the correct way. And it doesn't have to get done very often, but it should be looked at.
And Jeremy, can you retrofit?
Skincare,
Can you retrofit a pair of classic skis that didn't originally have skins on them? Or do they have to be specifically made for that?
No.
Okay.
They have to be specifically made for that. So a skin ski is going to have, it's basically a channel that is like not necessarily CNC'd out of the ski, but it's a depressed channel. It's built specifically into those skis. So the ski has to be specifically made to hold that skin.
Makes sense.
So if you were to take that material out of a waxable ski, well, you'd be looking at core material. And it wouldn't work.
Okay. Well, another question we had here from Chuck, wondering, based on snow conditions and the snow and air temperature, should the wax pocket differ? Meaning, should you apply the wax further up or back in your kick zone? Technical one for you.
Really, well, I mean, it's a fairly simple question to answer. If we're talking about those kick zones, and the way that we mark kick zones here is by the different heights of the resting camber when you put half weight on the ski. So we have machines over there that can test our kick zone. So we measure 0.2 millimeters, 0.4 millimeters, and 0.6 millimeters. And so what that kind of equates to is when you put down a binder and a blue or green hard wax, and you have it layered properly, it's about 0.2 millimeters thick. So you would put down, some of these waxes here on top of a binder. This shouldn't drag at that 0.2 millimeter mark. But when you get some of these thicker waxes, some of these stickier waxes like N41 or the Oslos, these are going to be, when you layer them properly, about 0.4 millimeters. So if you were to put this to that 0.2 millimeter mark, you would just end up slowing your skis down because it's going to be dragging at those points. So you don't want that to happen. Just put these at the 0.6 millimeters or 0.4 millimeters. And then clisters, they're about 0.6 millimeters thick. So as you are kind of working through that and figuring out, it's not necessarily on the conditions outside. It's like, okay, what type of wax am I using? Am I using a really sticky hard wax? I'll put it at 0.4 millimeters. If I'm using a not very sticky hard wax, 0.6 millimeters. And then clisters, 0.2 millimeters. And then clisters would be at 0.6 millimeters. So that's kind of how you decide where or the length of that pocket you should be using.
Okay. Thank you. Randy has a question, and it seems kind of along the same lines, but for skiing on artificial snow, how many layers should be applied to the kick zone on average?
That really is dependent on the ski. So, on average, I would say you have your binder, and I put that to that 0.4 millimeters because you're going to be using a sticky hard wax. At the very minimum, I would probably be doing 2 layers of that stickier wax. But depending on that resting camber of your ski, you might need to do more, and that's where you're kind of learning that ski as you ski on it. And so when you get into a race, like, you should already know what the proper amount of layers are. So generally for me, when I'm waxing skis that I don't know very well, which happens quite frequently when I'm waxing at the junior national races. So I show up to the junior national races and wax as a neutral race service. I get people that just say, hey, here's my skis. Can you wax waxing for me, and I will. I will do the binder. I'll do 2 full layers at that 0.4, and then I would do 2 full layers at the 0.6. So I kind of build it up into the middle a little bit. So there would be 4 layers of wax and then that 1 layer of binder. And then if the athlete asks like, hey, I need a little bit more, I might put down like another layer or 2 in the 2 to 3 inches behind the binding point, maybe 4 to 5 inches in front of that binding point. So depending on the skis conditions, all that stuff. But generally I try to build those layers up from the longest zone to that shorter zone, creating kind of a bell shape underneath the ski.
Yes, that makes sense. And there's obviously a lot to learn with waxing your own skis. Do you guys at Pioneer have any YouTube videos or any resources that can help people who are wanting to learn more on their own? Obviously they could listen to this video again if they wanted to go back, but do you guys have any resources you recommend? Any classes, anything?
We don't have any. We don't have anything currently. We've been planning on trying to get it up for the last couple of years. During the winter time, it's really difficult for us because we're usually really busy in here. So we do have some wax clinics. Okay. So there'll be a couple of clinics throughout this winter that will be advertising through our media, Facebook, email, blast, YouTube at a later date for to rewatch back. I did have a couple last year. I don't know how specifically I talked about kick waxing, but those are on our Pioneer Midwest YouTube page. We're going to try and do a better job with a little bit more professional setup in the recording stages, so that way the playback is going to be a bit better than it was last year. But this upcoming summer, fingers crossed, we're going to have a little bit more time than we did last year, and we should hopefully be able to make some content on wax clinics and like kick waxing, binder, base prep. I mean, really all sorts of things. We've been thinking about and wanting to do it for a long time. But this summer we were building a new website and kind of totally revamping our garage space, and that took most of our project time this summer.
Yeah. I hear you. I always think there's going to be more time next summer. So it's glad you guys are doing what you do and, making time to hop on here and answer some questions for us today. Folks know where they can find you. So we really encourage people to head on over to your shop, come check out, as Matt was saying earlier, bring the skis you already have, see, where they might be working well for you, where there might be some deficits. Maybe bend your ear a little bit on a wax refresher and get set up for this coming season. It's snowing here in Hayward. It's snowing over in the Twin Cities area. So we're excited to get rolling this year. I know, a lot of our classic skiers, you guys are our title sponsor for the Sealy Hills Classic. That's coming up on January 14th. We still have space in that. It's going to be a fun year. It's also part of the Super Tour this year. So there'll be some of the best athletes in the country. We'll be taking off ahead of our Citizens race and then coming back on Sunday for some sprints up at the Berkey Trailhead. So just a lot of exciting stuff. Jeremy, appreciate you taking your time to share your knowledge with us today. It's obvious that you have got a lot of experience, and I, at least as a new class skier, realize how much I have to learn. So thank you. Do you have any parting words or anything you want to share with folks before we go? Oh, I think we lost him. All right. Well, thank you for tuning in, everyone. If you have any follow-up questions, feel free to post them in the comments. We'll try to get either Matt or Jeremy to answer those. Head on over to Berkey.com if you want to check out the Sealy Hills Classic or the Slumberland American Birkebeiner, Korteloppet, and Prince Haakon coming up in February. Have a great day.